Amara's hands trembled as she stared at the small plastic stick. 2 pink lines. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Then the air rushed back in, warm and full, like the world had just opened its arms to her. She laughed quietly, pressing the test to her chest. After 2 years of waiting, praying, and silent disappointment, the dream had finally come true. She was going to be a mother. She imagined David's face when she told him. She pictured him lifting her in his arms, both of them laughing and crying at once. She wanted that moment to be perfect, so she decided to surprise him. He'd said he had a late meeting tonight, but maybe she could catch him at home before he left. She left the clinic early, the test tucked safely in her handbag, and drove home with her heart racing. The house was quiet when she unlocked the front door. She slipped off her shoes, trying not to make a sound, already planning to walk into the living room with the test in her hand. But then she heard it, David's voice. Low, soft, intimate. She froze. "I still think about you," he said. Amara's heart stumbled. "I can't stop," his voice went on, warm in a way she hadn't heard in months. "I don't love her the way I love you." The words were like cold water pouring over her. Her mind grabbed at them, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe he was talking to No, she knew. She'd heard that tone before, years ago, before they married. A woman's name slipped from his lips like it belonged there. Vanessa. Amara's hand tightened on the pregnancy test. Her mouth felt dry. The Vanessa, his ex-fiancée. The one he'd told her was just a closed chapter. Her grip loosened. The test fell to the wooden floor with a sharp clatter. The sound cut through his words. Silence. Then footsteps. David stepped into the hallway, phone still in his hand. Their eyes locked. She could see his mouth moving slightly, as if forming words he couldn't quite say. The test lay between them on the floor, 2 pink lines still bright and undeniable. Neither of them spoke. The air felt heavy, pressing in from all sides. Amara's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear. David's gaze flicked from her face to the test, then back to her eyes. His lips parted, but nothing came out. For a long moment, they just stared, caught in a silence that said more than any words could. "If you want, I can keep this exact style for the rest of the story, so the emotional tension never drops. Would you like me to move straight into the backstory next?" Amara first met David on a warm spring evening at a charity fundraiser for a big Houston law firm. She wasn't supposed to be there. Her friend, Chioma, had dragged her along, promising it would be good for network. Amara had just finished her nursing shift and was still a little tired, but the hall was full of bright lights, music, and people in sharp suits. David had been standing by the silent auction table, a drink in his hand, scanning the crowd like he was making mental notes. She remembered thinking he looked too serious for such a lively event. When their eyes met, he gave her a small, polite smile. They started talking, first about the fundraiser, then about their work, then about how both of them believed in working hard to build a better life. Amara, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants, had grown up with a strict set of rules. Her parents were proud and careful people who had worked long hours to give her and her siblings a good education. From as early as she could remember, her mother would say, "Amara, you must marry a good man. He must respect you, provide for you, and protect the family name." She had always nodded, not fully understanding how much those words would shape her choices. David was different from the men her parents had introduced her to at church gathering. He wasn't Nigerian, but he listened with genuine interest when she spoke about her culture. He grew up in a modest home, the eldest of 3, helping his single mother keep the family afloat. He told her once that everything he had achieved, his law degree, his job at the firm, was built from determination and long nights of study. Amara admired that. They fell in love quickly. Within a year, they were married. The first year felt like a dream. Dinners out, quiet weekends in, late-night talks about the future. She thought they balanced each other well, her warmth and his focus. But as time passed, little cracks began to form. David's job demanded long hours, and he often came home distracted, checking emails at the dinner table. Arguments started small, over chores, over missed calls, but sometimes they ended with him retreating into silence and her feeling invisible. They never stayed angry for long, but the space between them grew a little wider each time. Amara wanted a child badly. She had imagined their home filled with laughter, toys scattered on the floor, a baby asleep on her chest. They tried for over a year, but every month brought the same disappointment. She stopped mentioning it to David after a while, though she could see the quiet frustration in his eyes too. Still, the hope never left her. When she saw those 2 pink lines earlier that day, it felt like the universe had finally given her the thing she'd been waiting for. She thought about calling David right away, but she wanted to see his face when she told him. There had always been one shadow in their marriage, Vanessa. She was the ex-fiancée David had been with before Amara. He had told her they ended things because they wanted different lives, and he had insisted they stayed on good terms. Once or twice, he mentioned running into Vanessa or catching up over coffee, but he always brushed it off as nothing. Amara tried to believe him. She told herself that trust was the foundation of a marriage. But sometimes, she caught a flicker in his eyes when her name came up, a look that made Amara feel like she was competing with a ghost she couldn't touch. That ghost had never felt real enough to threaten her, until the moment she heard his voice in the living room, telling another woman he didn't love his wife the way he loved her. If you want, I can now carry this same voice and pacing straight into the inciting incident, so the tension keeps climbing. Amara bent down quickly, picked up the pregnancy test, and slipped it into her bag before David could take another step toward her. Her face felt frozen, her voice stuck somewhere in her chest. She managed a small shake of her head, then brushed past him into the bedroom. David followed, his voice casual. "You're home early. Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. She opened the wardrobe, pretending to search for something, and said, "Just tired." He didn't push. A moment later, she heard him in the kitchen, clattering dishes, humming under his breath. The normalcy of it made her stomach turn. How could he sound so ordinary after saying those words? All through dinner, he chatted about his day, about a case he was working on, about a funny story from his coworker. Amara nodded at the right moments, forcing small smiles, but her mind was far away, stuck on the sound of his voice saying, "I don't love her the way I love you." That night, he fell asleep quickly. Amara lay beside him in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding. She couldn't stop replaying the call. Who had ended it? Had he told Vanessa he would leave? How long had this been going on? Her eyes shifted toward the nightstand. His phone was there, face down. She bit her lip, hesitating. She'd never gone through his phone before, but the weight in her chest told her she had to know. She picked it up and unlocked it. His password was the same as always. She opened his messages. At first, it was normal work chatter. Then she saw her name, Vanessa. Her thumb hovered before she tapped it. The thread stretched back weeks. Late-night calls. Heart emojis. Words she couldn't imagine him saying to her anymore. "I miss your laugh. I keep thinking about last time. I wish you were the one I was coming home to." Her stomach clenched so hard she thought she might be sick. She scrolled further. There were plans to meet, hidden under vague phrases like same place and usual time. She saw hotel booking confirmations, expensive restaurant receipts. She put the phone back exactly as she'd found it, her hands shaking. She turned onto her side, facing away from him. She felt the baby inside her, small and new, and a fresh wave of fear swept over her. What kind of father would he be? Did she want her child to grow up watching this kind of love, thin, secretive, unfaithful? But another thought pulled at her. Could she fight for her marriage? Could she hold her family together for the baby's sake? She had dreamed of them raising a child together, of bedtime stories and family dinners, of a father who would be there. The war inside her grew louder with every breath. She didn't know yet which choice she would make, but she knew something for sure. Nothing between them would ever be the same again. Do you want me to keep the same momentum going into the next section where her suspicions deepen and the betrayal escalates? The days after that night felt strange, as if the air in the house had shifted. David was still polite, still kissed her cheek before leaving for work, but there was a distance in his eyes. He spent more time on his phone, stepped outside to take calls, and came home later than usual. Amara tried to act normal, but she watched him more closely now. Every smile he gave her felt slightly delayed, like he had to think about it first. She noticed faint cologne on his shirts, not the one she bought him. One evening, after another silent dinner, she called her older sister, Chioma. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Chi, I think David's seeing Vanessa again." Chioma didn't sound surprised. "Amara, don't jump to conclusions without proof. Men will deny everything unless you put the evidence in front of them." "I saw the messages," Amara whispered, "and the call that night." "Then be smart," Chioma said firmly. "Don't confront him yet. Collect everything you can. When the time comes, you'll have the truth, not just suspicion." The words settled heavily in Amara's chest. She didn't want to live like a detective in her own marriage, but she couldn't ignore the advice. She started small. When David left his wallet on the counter, she checked receipts, upscale restaurants she'd never been to. Once, she found a hotel receipt for a single night. The date matched the night he told her he was working. She began noting his late nights in her phone, matching them with the places she found. Every discovery cut a little deeper. One afternoon, after her shift at the hospital, she sat in her car in the parking lot and pulled the pregnancy test from her bag. She stared at the 2 pink lines, her eyes blurring. The joy she had felt when she first saw them now felt like a cruel joke. She asked herself the question she had been avoiding. Am I not enough for him? Her throat tightened, and she pressed her forehead to the steering wheel. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made, long shifts, late-night dinners, supporting him through his stressful cases. And yet, it seemed he still longed for someone else. At work, her mind wandered so much that she began making small mistakes. misplacing charts, forgetting to follow up on patient requests. Her supervisor called her into the office and asked if she was okay. Amara forced a smile and said she was just tired. She couldn't tell her boss that her marriage was quietly unraveling. Then came the call. It was an unknown number. She answered, expecting maybe a wrong number or a patient. "Hello, Amara," a woman's voice said smoothly. Amara's stomach dropped. "Who is this?" There was a short, amused laugh. "You know who I am." She didn't need to hear the name. "Vanessa." "I thought you should know," Vanessa said, her tone dripping with a mix of pity and pride. "David's been spending a lot of time with me lately. He says he's not happy with you. He's thinking about leaving." Amara's grip tightened on the phone. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I think you deserve the truth," Vanessa said, almost sweetly. "You're a good woman, but sometimes love just belongs somewhere else." The line went dead before Amara could reply. She sat there for a long time, the phone still in her hand, the sound of Vanessa's voice replaying in her head. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to hear it confirmed. And yet, she still didn't tell David what she knew. "Not yet. If you want, I can push straight into the dinner confrontation scene where the story explodes into the climax. That's where the betrayal hits its sharpest point." Amara spent the whole day preparing the dinner. She cooked his favorite meal, jollof rice with grilled chicken, a fresh salad, and the yam porridge he always asked for on special days. She set the table with the good plates they barely used and lit 2 candles. She told herself this was not just about sharing her pregnancy news. It was about seeing his reaction, watching his eyes, and finding out the truth without asking a single question. When David walked in, he looked surprised to see the table set. "What's all this?" he asked, loosening his tie. "I just wanted us to have a nice evening," she said, forcing a smile. He glanced at the food and nodded. "It smells great." But his voice was flat, like his mind was somewhere else. They ate mostly in silence. Amara kept stealing glances at him, searching for the man she used to know. She noticed how his phone sat next to his plate, screen facing down, as if he was waiting for a message. Halfway through the meal, she put down her fork and took a deep breath. "David, I have something to tell you." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "I'm pregnant." The words hung between them. She expected him to smile, to laugh, to take her hand. Instead, he just stared at her. His eyebrows twitched slightly, but not with joy. "How far along?" he asked, his tone careful. "Just a few weeks," she said softly. He pushed his plate away. "Amara, I don't know how to say this, but I've been thinking about ending our marriage." It felt like the floor tilted under her. "What?" "I didn't want to tell you like this," he said, avoiding her eyes. "But I can't keep pretending. I'm not in love with you the way I should be." Her chest tightened. "Because of Vanessa?" Before he could answer, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Amara stood, her legs heavy, and opened it. Vanessa stood there, wearing a fitted dress and a faint, smug smile. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, stepping inside without being invited. "David told me to come. We need to talk about our future." Amara turned to him. "You invited her here?" "Tonight." David ran a hand over his face. I didn't know she'd actually come." Vanessa laughed. "Don't lie, David. You said you wanted to see me, that we needed to make a decision." The air thickened with heat and silence. "Is this true?" Amara asked, her voice shaking. David's shoulders slumped. "I never got over her, but it's complicated. She plays games. She knows how to pull me back, and even when I try to move on." Vanessa's smile widened. "You can't move on because we belong together. And maybe now, you don't have to pretend anymore." Amara's voice dropped. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa glanced at David, then back at Amara. "I'm pregnant too." The words hit like a slap. "And yes," Vanessa continued, her tone slow and deliberate, "David is the father." Amara felt the blood drain from her face. Her hands gripped the back of a chair to keep herself steady. David said nothing. He didn't deny it. In that moment, something inside Amara broke. Not just the trust, not just the love, but the last thread that tied her to the idea of the life they'd planned together. If you want, I can take this exact emotional high point and write the resolution where Amara finally takes control and walks toward her new life. That's where her redemption begins. The weeks after that night passed in a blur. David moved into the guest room, and they spoke only when necessary. Amara avoided looking at him, avoided thinking about the sound of Vanessa's voice or the way David had stayed silent after her announcement. When the DNA test results came back, she didn't need to open the envelope to know what it would say. Still, she unfolded the paper and read the words slowly, each one pressing deeper into her chest. The test confirmed it. Vanessa's baby was David's. That night, she called Chioma. "I can't stay here anymore," she said, her voice steady in a way that surprised her. Within days, Chioma helped her pack her things. They filled boxes with clothes, kitchen items, the small decorations she'd picked out for what she once thought would be their forever home. Amara left the wedding photos behind. She moved into Chioma's apartment, while she figured out her next steps. For the first time in months, she could breathe without feeling like someone was watching her every move. Chioma recommended a lawyer, a woman who listened quietly as Amara explained everything from the phone calls to the DNA results. The lawyer laid out her options: file for divorce, secure child support, arrange custody before the baby was born so there would be no legal surprises later. Amara agreed to it all. The paperwork was overwhelming, but each signature felt like she was cutting another string tying her to the man who had betrayed her. She started attending a support group for single mothers at a community center near Chioma's place. The first time she walked in, she wasn't sure she belonged. Most of the women were already raising children. But when she shared her story, they nodded in understanding. They didn't pity her. They saw her as someone strong enough to start over. At work, she began focusing again. The hospital was busy, but the rhythm of caring for patients reminded her of her purpose. She found herself smiling more at her patients, feeling the quiet pride that had brought her into nursing in the first place. One evening, after her shift, she sat on Chioma's couch, her hand resting on her growing belly. She spoke softly, as if the baby could hear her clearly. "We are enough," she whispered. "I may not have planned for this life, but I promise you we will be okay. You will have love, you will have safety, and you will have me always." For the first time since everything fell apart, she believed her own words. If you want, I can now close with the final emotional scene after the baby is born. The day her baby arrived was calm and bright. Sunlight spilled through the hospital window, warming the pale walls. Chioma was beside her, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement when Amara's strength wavered. When the nurse finally placed the tiny, warm bundle in her arms, Amara felt the world go quiet. She traced the baby's soft cheek with her finger, memorizing every feature. "Welcome home," she whispered. 2 days later, a bouquet of roses arrived at her hospital room. The card only had David's name. Amara read it once, then set it aside without a reply. She didn't feel anger, only a calm certainty. There was no space for him in the life she was building. A few weeks later, she took her baby to the park for the first time. The air was cool, and the trees swayed gently above them. She sat on a bench, the baby asleep against her chest, wrapped in a soft blanket. Children laughed in the distance, their voices carrying on the wind. Amara closed her eyes and let the peace settle in. She felt lighter than she had in months, not because life was perfect, but because it was hers again. She looked down at her child and smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. In that quiet moment, she knew she was exactly where she needed to be. Sometimes the ending you feared is the beginning you needed. Hey besties, thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed Amara's story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more gripping stories. Stay tuned for the next one. Her friends invited everyone except her to their girls' trip, so she booked the seat right beside them. See you in the next story.